And Christopher Rausch. Boys and girls, welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show, live Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, every single Tuesday night. So whether you're listening to this on the audio podcast or you're checking us out on replay, every Tuesday night, put this in your calendar, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're on TikTok, we're all in different places. We're just getting our guests situated right now. So I apologize. I'm sending a text message right now to my other guest, because tonight we're talking about men's mental health. This is part 2 in a series of series where we're talking about men's mental health. And we're having the conversations that people need to be having. So if you are female and you happen to be watching this podcast, which I know a lot of you do, 80% of my audience is women. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. But do us a favor and send this link to a couple of men in your life who could use this opportunity for really like stretching inside of ourselves and becoming aware of where we're at mentally, physically, and spiritually, and not doing the blame game. I find a lot of my male friends out in the world right now are doing the blame game, and they're waiting for somebody else to give them permission to feel happy. And they're waiting for other people to give them permission for forgiveness. They're waiting for other people to give them permission to do the things in the world that they want to do, but they're held back by their limiting beliefs. So in tonight's conversation, this is what it's about. It's about reaching back into the darkest areas of our soul in a way and finding the opportunity to feel and feel our feelings, because so oftentimes as men, what do? We suppress them, or we repress them, or we express them. And unfortunately, a lot of times when men express their feelings, they do it in a sense of rage. They do it out of a sense of emotion. They do it out of a sense of, look at me, look how big and strong and physical that I am. Look at me, that I can command this situation. When in reality, what we need is to stop and listen. We need to stop and listen to ourselves and ask ourselves, why is it that I constantly react emotionally to these things? What is the trigger? And that's what I want you to think about tonight when you're listening to this conversation. What are your triggers? What are the things that kind of set you off in emotion that are negative and not very constructive? Because when you do that, and you can stop yourself and you can say, hey, listen, I realize that I'm going in a spiral right now. And you stop yourself and you become aware. And then what you do is you start to incorporate strategies in your life that you learn from podcasts like this and from the men that I'm about to introduce on the show. And you start putting that into play, and it's not perfect and it's not easy. But guess what? You start to be armed with opportunities to sit there and say, okay, why am I taking this so personal? Right? When you think about a question that you can ask yourself, oftentimes we're taking things personal. Why, when you're sitting in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you're mad that they cut you off, but ask yourself, why am I taking this personal? Is saying something on social media, they put a post out there, and I've seen this multiple times. People will message me and they're like, hey, so-and-so was talking about me in that post. What do you think? And then I'll go look at the post. I'm like, what if it has absolutely fucking nothing to do with you? I said, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. You're going to spend your energy and your time and your emotion and the love that you could be sharing with other people. You're going to be wasting your time thinking and assuming that this is about you when it is not. There's a great book out there called The 4 Agreements. And one of the agreements on there talks about, it says, don't take things personal. And I can tell you in my life, I'm 56 years old, and I'm very proud to say that. In my life, there have been times where I've had to stop and say, hey, Chris, are you taking this personal? I see an email at work. A coworker at work says something, whatever it might be. I see a social media post. Somebody said something at a party, and I go, it was about me. Oh, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. And then we kind of go into this script that says we're not worthy, and we puff up our chest and we try to pretend that we are. When in deep down inside, we're still scared little boys in men's bodies. And that's the conversation I want to have tonight, is being able to talk about what it is that we're doing. And these two men that I'm about to introduce are personal friends of mine. They are great people. Both of them have been on the Raw Unscripted show a couple of times. Eric Jackson was just recently on in February. If you want to see that, I will put that post in the links in the comments. Jock has been on the show multiple times. He was also on my other show called The Unfiltered Experience. So let's get them on the show and let's start talking about our mental health. So please welcome to the stage, Mr. Jock Brocas and Mr. Eric Jackson. What's going on, gentlemen? Welcome to the Raw Unscripted show.
Well, good evening, Chris. Been a long time since we've spoken. So yeah, how are you, Eric? It's really nice to meet you, my friend.
Good to meet you. It's very good. So yeah. So we got Eric and Jock for you guys listening on the podcast. Two beautiful human beings that I'm excited about this conversation. So I'm not going so I'm going to allow you two the opportunity to introduce yourselves to each other, and then we're going to dive deep into this conversation about men's mental health. So, Jock, I would love for you to share because I've known you the longest. So please do. And it's so great to see you, my brother. It's long overdue. So we get to do this live in front of thousands of people. So thank you for being here on short notice.
It's been so long. Yes. What can I say about me, Eric? I am an author. I am a mental health proponent, if you like. I specialize in grief. Throughout the world. I'm known throughout the world for my work in grief with veterans and various other communities. I've been intimately acquainted with grief all my life. I'm also considered a paranormal expert. I'm the founder of one of the top paranormal magazines in the world. And there's very much, not much else after that I do. But I'm trying to be as humble as I possibly can.
Yeah, he's got two hit podcasts. He's got a coaching profession.
I have an award-winning podcast as well as other things. I'm in the process of finishing off a master's and moving into a PhD in psychology.
There you have Mr. Jock Brocas, Mr. Humble. So Mr. Eric Jackson.
Too, that beautiful accent. I love the Scottish accent.
Isn't it? Right? I told you it was Shrek.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Scotland about 2 years ago and I absolutely loved it.
Where did you go, Eric?
Flew into Edinburgh and then
oh my God, you said Edinburgh, right? That's good. I'm impressed.
I learned quickly. And then we were there for a few days, did the usual touristy stuff, took a train to what's the city there at Loch Ness? Inverness. And
that's where I'm from.
Really?
I'm actually from Loch Ness. I used to have my house was just above it in a place called Ibriachen, which overlooked the loch.
We went to the battlefield there, which was the last battle in the UK.
The Battle of Culloden.
Culloden, yeah. Toured that. That was amazing.
Very mystical place.
Yeah. You could feel the energy there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we went to the Isle of Skye. Took the train, and just
it's stunning.
It's like you're on another planet.
Wow. Did you go and see the Man of Storr, the stones in the side of the mountain in Skye?
I don't remember that, but it and it's hard to describe how huge the place feels when you really feel small because there's so few trees. But I mean, it was just one of the most amazing landscapes ever. And my daughter fulfilled one of her lifelong dreams, and that was to pet a Highland cow. She's obsessed with the Highland cows.
Oh, I love it.
That's the dream I've not heard of yet.
But the thing is, Eric, you've got to get with the lingo. You don't say a Highland cow. You have to say it's a Highland coo.
Okay. I'll work on it.
Like a political coup?
A healing coup. Aye.
Yeah. They're lovely. Well,
so Mr. Eric, please, your introduction, sir.
Yeah, great to meet you, Jock. I'm Eric Jackson. I am I hate the word serial entrepreneur or the phrase serial entrepreneur, but that's kind of what I am.
Frosted Flakes.
Fourth and fifth business. The first is Element 47, which is a branding and marketing company. Just have a fantastic team. Love my people. Doing amazing work right now. Just really enjoying building that, and there's a purpose behind it. I believe that my God-given purpose to be on earth is to connect and grow people. And the real impetus, with the work that we do basically fulfills my purpose, which is to give people that work at Element 47 a good life. They get to learn and have a great environment in which to work. And we love coming to work most every day.
That's amazing. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a good time. And then the other company is called Next Mile Network. And one of the things I think I'll inevitably talk about today is that for us to have good mental health, we need to have good relationships with people. Like we're social animals.
Mm-hmm.
And, so Next Mile Network helps people create relationships. It's mostly based on professional relationships, but I've made a lot of new friends through this company that I started with my friend Ginger Jones. And
I love the name Ginger Jones. I suppose.
yeah, she's a piece of work. Yeah, she's one of my dearest friends, and she's become good friends with my daughter as well. And yeah, we've built a nice little business. It's about 1.5 years old now, and really helping people make connections and build community here in Nashville, because we have a lot of people moving to Nashville from all over the place. A lot of people from California, Chicago area, New York, you name it. It's just an influx.
That's actually a place I want to go and visit, Nashville. I want to go to Nashville so bad.
Well, we talked about it, dude. Me, you, and Walt meeting up in Nashville, but you guys all fucking wet crickets on my text message. So,
well, I mean,
I don't know about that, but we know Eric that lives in Nashville now. So there's no excuse.
I mean, I had an excuse. I was at uni and was bogged down with everything else I was doing.
Yeah. Excuses like assholes. All right, so let's jump into it. So I want to jump in right straight into the question with this, because I know you guys are going to be honest. Obviously, at the airing of this, been a lot of stuff happening here in the United States. There's been political changes and all sorts of socioeconomic changes, AI, there's immigration changes. There's all sorts of things to be stressed about if you focus on it. And I know a lot of people personally in my life are struggling right now, both female and male, but I know a lot of men right now are struggling in their masculinity, in their vulnerability, in their ability to handle the stress of things that are going on that they can't control. My question to both of you guys tonight is what is the state of your mental health right now, being honest, and what are some of the things that you're doing to keep your mental health in check?
Go on, Eric. I'll let you answer that before I jump in.
So I have this philosophy about current events. I don't pay attention to any of it.
I like it.
And a wise friend of mine told me, he said, man, the best thing I ever did was quit watching the news. If something really big happens, somebody's going to tell me about it, and then I'll know, and there's still nothing I can do. And that's kind of the way that I've approached current events. I've just chosen to live my own life and control the things that I actually have control of, which is a very small number of things, mostly me and my reaction to the rest of the world. And Amen.
So let me ask you the question that people ask me, because I'm right there with you. 10 years ago, I was a political junkie. I was a news junkie. I had to be informed. I would go to work and have great political conversations with a buddy of mine, Christopher. The initiatives and all these things that we would pontificate and we'd be frustrated, but in the end we would really change nothing. And so I came to work one day and I found myself yelling at the television. I thought, I'm just not going to watch the news or follow politics for 2 weeks. And this was 10 years ago. And I told him, I said, let's do the challenge together. And God's honest truth, we stopped talking about that stuff and we stopped being frustrated and angry. But my question to you, Eric, before I run to Jock, is people accuse me of being ignorant. They accuse me of burying my head in the sand. They accuse me of not being passionate with the times. I've had people privately message me and ask me why I don't use my show Raw Unscripted to talk about political differences and things of that nature. So how do you feel that? I mean, you're a very popular guy. You're an influential CEO. You're a leader. How do you dodge that question if people ask you, like, well, it must be nice to run away from what's happening?
I've got other shit to worry about.
Brilliant.
Right?
I can't fix everything,
right.
And I'm not here to do that. I'm doing the things that only I can control. If I could do something, I'd have fixed it by now. Nobody wants me to be a dictator. I think I'd be a pretty good one, but just joking, of course.
You got guitars. I mean, I'm with you right there. I'll be first in line.
Yeah. I play the drums every day. I'm primarily a drummer. I'm in a band. And that, the movement and the rhythm makes me just kind of disappear, and that makes me happy. Exercise every day. I'm concentrating on being the best version of myself that I can be for the people that I'm closest to, that matter to me. that I can have a positive influence on, and hopefully that multiplies with the people that are in their lives. That's it.
Amen. Right. I know you've had your fair shares. I kind of talked about it before you got here a little bit. You've had your fair share of challenges, let's just say, in the last 8 months at least. So what's the state of your mental health now? Because you and I admittedly are dear friends, but we have not had an opportunity to catch up. So we're doing this live here on the podcast for everybody to catch up. So how is your mental health, my friend? I mean, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've as well as me being, well, I'll ask the question, you know, I'll kind of answer a question that I was asked. I was asked is how does a grief expert like you grieve? Because in the past 8 months, I've lost so many people dear to me, direct relations and my family, as well as people connected to me, one after the other. Bum, 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 bum. You know, my wife and I were separated for a number of time. We went through Hurricane Helene. And I would like to say that I, you know, as people see me as an expert in grief, I grieve like every single person in the world. There's no difference. The only difference is that I may have some extra tools that I can utilize. And, you know, for me, Chris, yeah, I've had a lot of challenges and everything else, but I still try to be an observer rather than me being a participant in it. The minute I become a participant in the news, or I become a participant in the world, then I can get drawn into the imbalance and the perceptions and the expectations. And as you know me, I've always said perception, expectations is the basis of suffering in the world and the judgments that we have. So I like to say to people, I love to look at trees. I love to take a step back and I love to look at trees. I love to get the camera out and I love to take photographs of the world or photographs of people. I love to be an observer rather than being a participant, which allows me to be able, you know, as an ex-military guy as well, I'm interested in what's going on in the news, what's going on in the world. But I can do it from a detached point of view, and I can see massively. I can see around. I can observe it, and I don't need to let it affect me. And so
how do you do that? Because you and I have had these deep conversations.
Yeah,
I recommend everybody to read Michael Singer, you know, the Surrender Experiment and the something soul. I'm fucking having a brain fart right now.
The Untethered Soul.
Yeah, the Untethered Soul. But it's taken me years and years and years and years of reading that and listening to people like you and Lee and Scott and so many different people in my life to understand what that means to be the observer in our life. Can you explain as best as you possibly can for people who are listening and watching that don't get that don't understand that they're the people that can kind of sit back and go, wow, look at all those thoughts and reactions going on in my brain. That's really interesting. Which one am I going to choose to focus on right now?
So let me explain it a little bit, and some people may not understand this, but Eric, probably something you don't know about me either. I'm also a spiritual medium. I have been a medium for over 2 decades, nearly 25 years. And I have had a deeply spiritual connection from a young age, spending time in a monastery where my uncle was a monk, where I took holy orders at one point myself. And so it is not something that you learn overnight, Chris. As we've said this many times, this is something that you develop. The discernment is something you develop. So if I can kind of explain it from maybe a mediumistic point of view, I can sit with someone that's maybe grieving, or I can sit with someone who's lost a loved one. I can connect maybe to the other side. And the reason that I can become detached from it, because I know the minute that I discern, the minute I get connected to anything that's outside of me, anything on a higher level, then I can allow these emotions to come in. That means that I'm not detached. It means that I can't discern the information. I can't get anything from it. And then I can't share that knowledge or share that wisdom. So it's not something that you're just going to pick up from a book. And it's not something that you're just going to pick up from just going on a course. You're going to pick it up from life, and you're going to pick it up from getting to know who you are. And the reason that we can become observers is because we learn who we are. And most of the times, and especially for male mental health, we don't know who we are. There's many men out there, they don't know who they are. They're not willing to own who they are. They're not willing to, realize that, I'm a spiritual being. I'm here. I'm having this experience here. And they tend to be caught up in the materialism and the materialistic aspect of life, and also the expectations that everybody has on a man. You've got to be the winner. You've got to be the breadwinner. You've got to be the fighter. You've got to be the warrior.
Strong one. Don't let your emotions show. Be a man.
Don't let it. Just don't. And everybody grieves, right? And it doesn't matter. And I'm not talking about grief just as even in losing a loved one or a close family member. I'm talking about grieving a job. I'm talking about grieving the loss of your home. I'm talking about survivors in Los Angeles that were through the fires and lost things and lost heirlooms, and grief touches us in every part of our life. And no matter what we go through in life, unless we know ourselves, we can't go through life and learn from our experiences, because life is about experience. So I would say to anybody, you're learning to discern over a period, over your life. You're constantly going to be developing that. And when to become an observer, you can't become an observer until you get to know who you are. Once you get to know who you are, then you can become an observer.
Thank you, my friend, for sharing that. That is super profound. So many places I could jump off on that. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, just getting to know Jock, Mr. Eric, what are your thoughts on what he's sharing, and what has that journey been like for you to be able to find that discernment, to be able to be separate from the busy mind, the egoic mind, what's been that journey for you?
A lot of what Jock just said really resonated with me. It was not until I understood what my purpose in the world is that I really began to get it, and I solved a lot of my own problems. That idea of connecting and growing people, I began to realize that there are a lot of things that I'm just not good at, that I'm never going to be good at. Like we have a client that he counseled me many years ago. Very brilliant guy, very spiritual guy. Like he's the sort of person that you can meet him in 10 minutes, and then at the end of the meeting, he'll tell you exactly who you are.
Yeah.
Scary. And a couple of my employees went to meet with him, and I said, he's going to do this with you. Just be prepared. And they were blown away.
It's scary when they do that. You're like, I thought I hid that pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets it. So, where was I going with that? He's got some work that he needs us to do, and he starts throwing details to me. And my nature was that, I'm going to take this over. I'm going to manage this, and I'm going to make sure that this happens the right way. And I just went, what am I doing? I'm terrible at this. I'm going to blow this up. Like I don't need to get involved. I need to give this to my team to let them manage it and let them work in their strengths. Because if I step in and I try to do this and I muck it up, I'm taking an opportunity away from them. I need to retreat and remember what I'm supposed to be doing and stay in my lane and I could do it. It wouldn't be pretty. So one of the other things that Jock mentioned too is looking at trees. So I have a beautiful backyard here in Nashville, Tennessee, green as can be. We've gotten lots of rain recently. I go outside every morning with coffee and just sit and look at the trees and watch the birds. And there's nothing better than that morning sunlight and just being by yourself out in nature, getting a little fresh air, just really clears the head.
Getting some sunshine. I mean, what you're talking about right there, Eric, is being intentional, right? How do we start our day? I mean, there's so much support and validation and statistics in that, how you start your day. I read the book, The 5 a.m. Club by what's his nuts? Just fucking forgot his name. 5 a.m. Club, Robin Sharma. Yeah, I was thinking of I have another book up there that's orange. That's Keith Ferrazzi, Never Eat Alone. Sorry, they're two orange books. My brain got sideways. But it's really incumbent upon us, like to choose how we start our day. And so often we let these things, we look at our phone and we look at the headlines and we let the things that we focus on the most that allow us to be a victim, we focus on that shit to drag us down, and we become victims to the blame game, and we become victims to so many different things that we have so much more control over than we realize. My question to is in kind of setting the landscape for how powerful all three of us are is I want to talk about our lowest point as men. And I did this last week with Lee and Christopher, and it was very profound. Quite a few people messaged me and said, thank you for that. And I think about, for me, I've had quite a number of low times and challenging times in my life. And I'm very proud to say that because of those times, I become the man that I am standing in front of you guys today. And I know you guys feel the same way. And I know for me, a low point for me being a man came very early in my life. You guys know I was homeless. I was up until 17. And then I started getting control of my life. I wound up getting married when I was 18. And then about 23, 24 years old, she and I started realizing that we were kids when we got married. And now we're kind of becoming the people that we're going to become. And it was somewhat of a surprise to me one day when I was sitting on the couch with my wife a couple of days after my 23rd birthday. And there was something intuitively inside of me that I did not understand. I had this voice in my head that said, ask her the question, when are you going to tell me? And so I was on the couch with my wife at that point, and I said, hey, when are you going to tell me? And she's like, tell you what? And I said, I know there's something you have to tell me. I can feel it. You need to tell me what it is. Otherwise, it's going to eat you up inside. And I had no idea what I was saying. I was just following my intuition. And then all of a sudden, she broke down in tears. And here at 23, I can't remember exactly the age, 23, 22, something like that. My wife at the time proceeded to tell me that she had an affair with my best friend. And so here I am. I'm muscled out. I'm doing good. I've survived homelessness. I'm in college. I'm working my ass off. I'm working 12 hours a day. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing all these things to improve myself. But the one thing I'm not doing is paying attention to my wife. And so in sitting on the couch with her, I said, what happened? And she goes, well, on your birthday, you passed out. And so Rick and I ate out and did some other stuff. And I said, okay. I said, do you love him? And, we went through all this stuff. But for me at that point, being, very tough and very masculine and long hair and, all these things, and survived having a gun to my head and all these different things. But here I'm sitting there and I couldn't do enough or be enough to make sure my wife didn't stray to another guy. And in the first moments, I was very reactionary. I was very mad and blaming, and how could you do this? But over the next couple of days, surprisingly, I stopped and I said, what responsibility do I have in this? And it was a very poignant time in my life because I did not want to be vulnerable. I wanted to blame. I wanted to punch. I punched 5 holes in the wall. I started smoking again. I mean, it wasn't pretty by any means, but I was able to have some introspective thoughts and think, okay, have I been, paying attention to my wife? No, I took her for granted. I was doing my school work. I was doing everything else. And so in that moment, I made a pledge to her to be a better husband and to be a better friend. And not that I condone what they did, but I understood how it happened because both of them were staying in my apartment waiting for me to come home so we could all have a good time. And that's how things happen. So for me, that was one of the lowest points of being a man in my life. But because of that moment, I never not took my responsibilities as a husband or a boyfriend or as a partner. I took that very, very seriously from those points forward. So what was that for you guys? What was that moment of clarity, lowest point as a man, where you kind of had to get to grips with yourself and kind of have that honest conversation, whether it was in your 20s or in your 50s? What was that like for both of you?
I would have to say that was probably, let's see, 19 years ago. I basically told my wife that it was over. We'd been married for 11 years, and I knew about a month in that it was never going to work.
Oh wow! A month into your marriage or your relationship?
Yeah, into the marriage. She is still a toxic narcissist, just lied all the time and just horrible, horrible person. And I realized that, that I just couldn't do it anymore. And so when I told her this, and I kind of had to prepare for what might possibly happen. So I had a buddy, he heard me on the phone talking to her one day. He said, "Everything okay? You need a place to stay?" I might. So if you need a place to stay, call my girlfriend. She'll let you in the house. He traveled a lot. So ended up calling him. She basically lost her shit. And she said, "You need to get out." I'm like, "Okay." And she
invitation accepted.
Yeah. And a few weeks after that, I'm basically living out of a suitcase, sleeping on the floor in my buddy's house. Eventually I got a bed that somebody gave me. And she invited me she said, "I think you've suffered enough. I think you can come on back." And I said, "Nah, I'm good. I'm done." And it was despite the fact that I knew the entire time we were married that it was never going to work. It was still a very difficult time. And, have a daughter, from that relationship. She was young. She actually left the house with me and helped me move my stuff into my friend's house, which was not great. I've asked her if she remembers it. She has no recollection of it at all. I'm sure it's one of those traumatic things that we just bury. But thankfully with my friends, not only my friend Chris, as a matter of fact, is his name, Chris are good people.
Thank you.
He supported me every step of the way. And I had lots of other good friends, and I was able to, lift myself up. And 6 months later, divorce was final, moved on with my life.
So what was the core lesson in all of that?
I knew probably before we got married. There is a tendency I have sometimes to not admit the truth that's there.
You're not alone.
I'll make decisions without taking everything into account. And I began to realize that that's a problem that I've got. And next go round was I made a much wiser decision. And
and now you've been married how many years? 20?
Been married 13 years now. And a great woman, just as loyal and moral, and just a great individual. And I would do anything for her, and she would do anything for me. And I know that. And
that's what it's about.
Exactly.
Mr. Jock, same question for you. And thank you for sharing that, Eric. I appreciate that. I know tons of people out there need to hear that right now. And you really you got honest with yourself. You got aware with yourself. And you said, "You know what, listen, I can't continue to tolerate me allowing myself to be in the situation where I'm not happy." And how many of us are unhappy in our jobs, unhappy in our relationships, unhappy with ourselves, but yet we're not doing anything, and we're hoping, wishing, and praying that something changes, when in actuality, we have to get raw and vulnerable and to go sleep on those floors and have those honest conversations and go through that loneliness, if you will, to become stronger, become more aware of what it is that we should not do in the future.
Yeah. And I'm just glancing over here at the comments, and Jacqueline Rose mentioned that there's no help out there for narcissistic people. And I learned that the hard way. And I think it's important that everybody understand what that looks like, because I have been fooled since then by narcissists. Of course, I didn't marry one, but understanding how people treat you and what their motivations are, it's very important, because narcissists have a great way of setting the hook. And if you cross them or disagree with them, you're going to have you find out really quickly what it looks like.
Yes. Mr. Brocas, I'm interested to hear this. I'm not sure if I know which story you're going to share, but I know there's a few.
Yeah.
One involves the Queen, I think. But
no, there is, well, in a roundabout sort of a way, but no. You'd have to read my first book to really kind of understand what I used to do and how this affected me. But to the point that there was a time in Scotland where I sat on a beach contemplating suicide and then went back home to my apartment and tried to do it with a tanto to commit seppuku. Which is
What's that for English people?
Seppuku is a Japanese term, samurai, for where they take their own life because they're full of shame and guilt. And I was full of shame and guilt. My father had passed. My father and I didn't get on well, and that's for another reason. And we never got to say goodbye. We had a lot of distrust between each other. And to set the scene a little bit, you know, when I came out of the military and I worked as a bodyguard, and I ended up getting into working for various different other organizations, and I was involved in other type of work that involved investigating organizations and stuff. No, but you know, we won't say anything there. But in investigating organizations and people, and unfortunately, my dad was like your typical Robin Hood. You know, my father was. Rob the rich to feed the poor, was a little bit of a kind of Scottish gangster type guy. He was well connected, and sometimes he was well connected with the wrong type of people as well. And my lowest point was when I had to use my own father to gain an advantage to get the information that I needed. And that shame and that guilt lived with me ever since that moment that I carried even to this day. I've dealt with it now, but to the point that after several months after losing my father, when we fell out on his deathbed again, because he had lost total trust and faith in me. And that was hard. That was hard because I manipulated and used him unbeknown to him, because I needed to get access to organizations that were connected in Ireland and connected in various other places in Eastern Europe. And
so
he didn't know what he was doing. Huh?
How do you process that guilt? Because I know that men are listening right now, and that's one of the things that we do a terrible job at. We push it down and we sit there and we mask it with our addictions and other things. But how do you deal with that guilt, or have you?
No, I haven't. I still have it. There's still an element there. I've dealt with it to the point where I can accept it. You see, here in all of life, and one of the things I'll say is that for men, for women, for anybody really, the reason that we create our own suffering, and it's and how we create our own suffering, and even this is, you know, even can go into forgiveness and all sorts of aspects of that.
That's where I'm going.
The reason that we do this is because we create our own suffering for what we judge. When we've done something, it is the judgment that causes the suffering. If I judge something that is affecting me in a negative way, and the way that I felt guilty, the judgment I had of that thing that I did, or that judgment I had of that's what caused me my suffering. You know, it's like someone does something to you, and your people will say, forgive yourself or forgive them. But the reality is you don't need to forgive yourself. It's an illusion. And you don't need to forgive them because they don't really care and there's no power in it. And the reason that we suffer is because we have to learn to surrender. Going back to your book, you know, you have to surrender the judgment, because it's the judgment that causes the suffering. And once I realized that, once I recognized that it was the judgment that I was making that was creating the suffering, then again, I'm able to then look at this as an observer and say, okay, right, I made that decision then, and I did, and I see that. You know, I'm looking at the tree and I'm seeing the whole tree. I'm not in the tree and climbing it and part of it. I'm looking at the whole thing. And so I can look at it now as an observer and say, okay, it's the judgment of what I did. It's me, the way I judge the situation, the way I'm judging anything is what's causing my suffering. And the secret to understanding forgiveness or to let go of guilt or shame is to understand the power that judgment holds over you and how to release judgment, because that's what causes the suffering. And I'm not talking about how you judge something in a distance that's 30 feet away. It's the spiritual concept of judgment in your life. And that can go on every religious text going, or even in indigenous tribes, we have that same similar aspect. And so when you learn to understand the power of judgment, then you also then get to understand the power of choice. And then when I recognized that, I was able to become the observer and not let it affect me as much. And so when I have times now, even now, when I go down, now when I feel the pain from things in the past, I can then take that step back. I can observe it and realize that the only reason I'm feeling it is because of the way I'm judging it.
Okay, so stop right there. So I'm going to ask Eric, what are your thoughts on why we judge as men? Is that a control issue? Is that an ego thing? Is that a macho? What are your thoughts on the whole judgment aspect, and what's been that journey for you to be able to find, like Jock was saying about guilt and by forgiveness? I know for me, one of the most powerful experiences I've had in my life was being able to, through writing the book about my life, being able to stop and think, okay, if I went through the experiences and had the people in my life that she had during the times that she had, might I have been like her? And in that moment, I was able to find sympathy. I was able to find empathy and forgiveness and understanding that I placed unrealistic expectations on her to be Mrs. Cunningham and be Mrs. Brady, who I saw on the television, but that was unrealistic for what she was capable of. And once I was able to put myself in that position, I found a lot of forgiveness and was able to release a lot of hurt and the negative emotions that I felt as a kid because I saw her in a different light. So same question to you. What has that journey been like for you to find that empathy and to find that understanding, and also not to judge everything like Jock was saying?
I think I just recently figured that out. And going back to the way we started off the conversation tonight, the need that some people have to get involved in the things they see on television, on the news, and have an opinion about it. I choose to think that, well, I don't know everything. I don't know the other person's situation. And I understand that my wife had a lot of trauma growing up. And I think that what happened to her created a lot of those things. And so she is a product of whatever happened to her in her past. Maybe she could have worked on that. I tried to get her to. It didn't take. And so I had to get out of that situation. And so I try to be empathetic with other people instead of judging people. And I look at how I've been judged in the past, and I go, yeah, so I messed up, and that's not who I am. And I guess it all goes back to this. And I've got the book right here. I read this thing every day, The Daily Stoic. There's a lot in, it predates Christianity. It's a philosophy of control the things that you can actually control. You only own your emotions and you own your reactions.
Marcus Aurelius.
Yes. And he actually wrote all his thoughts down. He studied Stoics. He had no idea that what he was writing down would ever be.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Become one of the most well-known philosophers in the world.
Yeah.
I was just jotting notes.
Just making observations. I'm the leader of the Roman Empire, and I'm just journaling. And yes, and judgment is fleeting too, right? I mean, you see it in the public world, like when there's some big conflict in the world. I remember 9/11. Everybody thought they had all of that figured out, and there was this rush to judgment, and that we've got to go to war. And, 30 years later, millions of people dead. And did we do the right thing?
For what?
Yeah. For what? To what end?
Mm-hmm. And
so people tend to roll back those ideas much later. This is probably getting a little too philosophical, but again, it just goes back to, I can only control what I can control. And if somebody doesn't like me, I still have lots and lots of friends. I'm not going to judge myself too harshly, and I'm going to try not to judge others too harshly. And I think part of the way that I'm able to do that is I try to connect with people at a deep level. I love to do in-person meetings. Mm-hmm. Point that it's almost detrimental to my own health. Like I have lunch with somebody almost every day, and I like to have conversations. I need to understand people in order to have a relationship with them. And people tell me that, well, gosh, you have all these disparate people in your life that you can connect with, that you have conversations with. And I think it's important to have that empathy, to be able to see where they came from and what their motivations are. And so, I think all of that work that I've done enables me to just kind of let go of judgment. I just don't, and the judgment I've inflicted on myself in the past, I've been able to work through. I think the last time I was on your show, I talked about my relationship with my father, and that I realized a couple of years before he passed that I needed to repair that relationship. And so I went to work doing that. And thankfully I got that opportunity. And when he passed, there were no regrets there. Mm-hmm. And that is a blessing that not everybody gets, but I happened to figure it out at the right time and was able to recover from, having that haunt me for the rest of my life. I mean,
smart man.
I mean, I wasted a lot of time that I could have taken advantage of, but I did the best with what I had.
Mm-hmm. And I tell people, and I love that you shared that, because, regrets suck. And people who know me, who follow me on social media, I'm constantly hashtagging. And I think about my own life in terms of, what regrets do I have now? And sometimes I try to think, okay, fast forward 20 or 30 years, what regrets might I have in the future that I might need to address today that perhaps my ego or ignorance is trying to mask me from? So we got to have those honest conversations with ourselves. And I think what we're talking about tonight between the three of us is taking that responsibility. And I want people to hear this and really key in on this, is that you got to take responsibility for the thoughts that are happening up in your brain, right? And number two, surround yourself with the people who get it, because so oftentimes when we're hanging around other people that are similar to us, what is it? Misery loves company. And we sit there and we commiserate, we blame, and oh yeah, that's why we're fucked up, because our parents screwed us up, and that's why we're on drugs and alcohol, and that's why we do binge watch and all this other shit. But ultimately we all have to get centered with and get right with ourselves. With the conversations that we're having within our own brain. And part of that is addressing the negative self-talk that so oftentimes consumes what goes on in here. We put on the error, the error that we're masculine men and we got it figured out, but the negative self-talk that's going on up here, the people I have talked to and interviewed in this show and the show that I've done before, I've been doing broadcasting now for, I think, 23 years. It's amazing what happens when people start to get real honest with themselves and start to accept that responsibility for where it is that they're going in their lives and not to blame other people. My question for you guys, given that we're all men of around, I can't remember, Jock, I think you're not quite 50 yet. Have you hit 50 yet? Have you hit 50?
Yeah.
I know Eric and I are the same age. I think we're both 56.
I'm over
right?
50.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure.
I'm 53.
Okay, so you're still a pup. Okay, so I'm 56.
I don't feel like
Eric, you're 56 as well, right?
I'm 57.
Okay, so I want to talk about the conversation here for people who might be younger thinking about this. Is what thoughts are you guys experiencing now in your 50s? Because I'll share it and I'll go first. And Jock and I haven't even recently. I kind of told you I was going through a little darker period, and for people who are listening, I'm one of those crazy people. You don't have to worry about me when I go through a darker period. For me, it's not an excitement, but it's a curiosity to know, okay, when I go through this period, I know on the other side that somehow, some way, I'm going to go through some shit, but I'm going to learn something that I know is going to be able to help other people. And so I look at that, like my back surgery. I went through and I read David Goggins, and I was like, okay, how do you have the mental awareness to be able to go through pain that you can't even fathom? I read him, I studied him, I went through pain surgery, and I've helped a ton of people go through that. Now in my life, and it's not right now, but it was probably the first couple of months of this year, after turning 56, for me, it was like a perspective, like, oh shit. I mean, at 50, it kind of hit like, oh yeah, I'm getting older, but I'm still in great shape. I still look great, whatever. 55 was kind of like, all right, I'm a senior citizen, I guess. But for some reason, extra tick onto the 56 side has caused me to have very, very dark thoughts about my mortality, about how I'm going to pass, about how I'm going to age, all these fearful thoughts and all these feelings of insecurity and loneliness, uncertainty, where I didn't have that in my life for the last 20 years. I've been go-getter, I've been go Chris, I've been workout Chris, I've been corporate Chris and coach Chris and podcast Chris and all these different things. But here I am now at 56, to a father to an 8-year-old son. And I'm like, what's most important now? Like, what's most important now? And through this little shadow of the dark night of the soul, or whatever it is I've had to release the identity that I thought I was. And not that it was a bad thing, because I've contemplated this quite a bit. It got me to the point it needed to get me to, successfully, financially, scholastically, mentally, all these different things. But now I find myself in a place where I've had to really re-identify who I am. And I want you guys to talk about that from your perspective. Have you had to kind of experience that now in your 50s, where you re-identify who you are as a man, and what's that process been like? Because I know that there's a lot of people that watch the show between 40 and 60. We've got younger people too, but I know a lot of people right now, when I talk to them, are dealing with the same thing, but they're not talking about it. Not all at once.
Go on, Eric. I'll let you go first. And I'll contemplate on that one.
It's been a very interesting experience. I will say that. That's So what's that like for you?
So several symptoms that I've experienced. I have, I think, 14 of this charcoal gray shirt.
Oh, dude, I have 4 of these.
I pretty much wear the same thing every day. I've got one pair of boots in 4 different colors that I wear every single day. You know, I just don't care about the things that I used to worry about. I have considered my mortality, and when after you pass 50, and my wife's about 5 years younger than me. She's like, I'm getting these pains. I'm like,
my wife's 10 years younger, and she's like, my knees are starting to hurt. I'm like, oh, bitch, you haven't even seen it yet. Your toes are going to start to hurt.
Yeah. This is when the parts start falling off the car. I mean, it's just part of life, right?
Right.
And so I have just taken this attitude, and I write it down in my journal every day. Today is going to be a great day, because every day is a gift.
Intention.
Every single day that I am above ground and drawing air is a good day. I'm going to have pain. I'm going to have difficulty. It's just part of life. And yes, I'm going to have medical problems. It's like, I'm just going to gut it out. I'm going to take care of myself in the best way possible, which I've been doing for the last few years.
You've done a tremendous job. I want you to talk about that too. I mean, the focus on your mental health and your physical health, and what you've accomplished and what you overcame when you talked about my other show. I definitely want you to touch on that.
Yeah. So I came to the point. The reason why people make change is because the pain of continuing on as you are is greater than the pain of change. And I just decided alcohol is not good for me. I've got to stop. Telling one of my friends about 5 months later that, I've quit drinking, but I'm still fat. And he tells me, well, I'll fix your shit. You're just going to work out every day, and you're going to report to me what you did, or I'm flying to Nashville and I'm going to put my foot in your ass. And I said, well, I know it's probably not going to do that, but I do know that that's the answer.
Yeah.
People always ask me, how did you do it? What's the secret? I said, let me tell you. It's diet and exercise. I know it's really
I don't want to die early.
It's a really hard way to go. it's not a shot that I have to take. It's just basically following the rules that we've live under as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Got to take care of yourself, and that includes your mind as well. So it's
yes.
Get up every morning. I did slack off a little bit and don't get up at 4:47 anymore. I get up at about 6. I just
Jesus, Eric, what has happened to you?
I'm getting soft.
In just a few short months, you've just let it slip?
Yeah. I've shortened my morning routine, but it's still just as impactful. Get up every day, work out, a journal, which self-reflection, writing down the things that are in my mind, get them out on paper.
So important.
So, maybe someday people will read this and go, yeah, he was really suffering. But at least it didn't follow me around for the rest of the day. Right. And read the Daily Stoic, read the Bible. I've got my routine down. It kind of takes me out of my own head, and it prepares me for whatever is coming for the rest of the day. And it just makes me feel better. I don't have to, I don't have to suffer. And, I realize that I'm still getting better physically, but there's a certain point at which I won't be able to do the things that I'm able to do now, but there will be other joys in life.
Right.
My daughter's coming to visit on Monday. She works for me now. And so she's coming to visit. She lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, married. One day, I'm sure there will be grandchildren. I won't be able to run around like I do now, but there will be other things to look forward to. And
it's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. It's part of life. And, it's just easy. I just have to decide to let those things go. I can't control it. Again, going back to the stoicism thing, I'm just going to let the things go that I can't control and realize that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I feel, and I want to get to you, Jock, on the same question. I feel very strongly in my bones about this, and people sometimes give me shit for when I say it, is that everything that has happened in our life and everything that is happening in our life is preparing for what's next. And so we can either have blinders on and say, no, that's not going to happen. But I had somebody, and I'm a fan of a podcast. I'm a fan of watching podcasts on YouTube. And so I probably watch upwards of 6 to 8 hours a week of podcast. So I'm constantly learning, whether that's the what's the guy, the CEO project. I can't remember his name. Chris Williamson. Yeah. So I watch a few of these guys, and somebody said something in a way that says, what decade are you preparing for now? And I was like, huh? And the guy said, he goes, the decade you should be preparing for right now is your last decade. Mm-hmm. He goes, so think about it this. So if you want to live to be 85, your last decade is going to be 75 to 85. So what are you doing now at 56 to prepare for that 75? Are you investing wisely into your healthcare? I mean, I'm gonna join this thing. I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but I guess they do some sort of blood test where they test like 500 different markers.
Yeah.
It's an innovative company where a lot of people are investing, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but I could get it to you guys. So what decade of our life are we preparing for now? And I think that's beautiful that you say that, because, there's going to be physical limitations. Like for me, the next 10 years, I bought a new truck. The next 10 years is all about traveling in the United States. My son in 10 years. So I've got a clear vision of the next 10 years is me and my family going out in our RV and traveling the world and seeing that. And then when he's 18, I'll be 66. So what my body's already kind of jacked up as it is, and that's an understatement. So at 66, he'll be 18. So now I'm going to give it a great run for the next 10 years. But I know at 66 that maybe that's the next phase of my life. Maybe we retire and we get a condominium. I don't know. But we're having those conversations now because you can't ignore the reality of what's happening. So what's that journey for you, Jock? I want to get to you on this and thinking about your life and what you've experienced. You've gone through hurricanes, you've gone through losses. What is it for you that you are finding as a man, since this is for men's mental health, that you're experiencing in your 50s that you can help other people perhaps who might be experiencing this that are resisting it?
There's a couple of things that come to mind. One, I must be one of the only mediums that is terrified of death, because which is it's a bit of a.
We've had that conversation. We've had that conversation.
It's like, but I know there's another side, and I've had, there's unequivocal proof of it, and I'm not frightened of passing over and moving on to my next life. I'm frightened of the process of death and the suffering, because I don't like suffering in the world, full stop. And probably one of my we've talked about this many times as well, Chris, one of my greatest fears is time. I mean, time freaks me out big time. It has done for years. Time is one of the things that I, even with my wife, I'm like, don't talk about time. Don't tell me how many weeks we've got left. Don't stop it.
I'll do the marble exercise. That'll freak you. I did the marble exercise once, where you take the glass bowl and you take a marble out for every, it just freaks me out. So, for me, going through the life that I've had and what I'm doing, I mean, I've gone back to university at the age of 50, in my 50s, and I'm heading for a PhD. Why am I doing it? For no other reason that I can serve others and help to lessen the suffering that they may have in the world. Right.
So for me, my pure goal, and I don't normally go for goals. I'm normally, goals to me are an illusion. I go for transformation. But for me, my journey is to serve as much as I can, to impact others, to make their suffering less. And I want to go. I don't even want to go my deathbed. I want to go when my lost voice is teaching someone or sharing some wisdom with someone, and I go in that moment. If I can keep that going, then I won't try and think about all of these other issues. Or yes, I get worried about health. I get worried about these things. But for me, what keeps me alive is the fight to serve. That is the greatest battle that I'm fighting now, is the battle I have to serve others. And that's what I'm going to do right until my last dying breath.
And that's something you both share, all three of us share together, is that I know this for a fact, is that we all have a clear vision of our why. And I talk about this so often on the show. When you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. But sometimes that why shifts. And I know for me recently, and Jock, you know this, my why has always been very crystal clear, that I wrote it in my eulogy, that I will fight for what's right and what's fair. I will risk for which that mattered. And I've left the earth a better place for who I was and what I did. And in recent times, I've had to take a step back from that and realize, what's my why right now? Like, when I detach myself from the ego and the validation of saying, okay, he had all these radio shows and podcasts and a best-selling book and did all these things and made the world a different place. I heard this, and I'll share this with you guys. I heard this, that it talked about, like, when you die, like, the first couple of days, people are going to find out about it. They're going to be tormented. They're going to be depressed. They're going to be sad. They're going to go to their funeral. They're going to remember you. But in a couple of weeks, people back into their life. And it's not that you're forgotten, but your life continues. You're still remembering that person. But realistically, like, after you're gone, who are the most critical people who are going to remember you?
I'm going to haunt them.
And for me, right? And for me, I was like, okay, before I wanted the validation of knowing that my life wasn't all for shit and that I had made something of myself. But now when I get honest with myself, I realize that the biggest like compliment, like when I think about my life, the biggest compliment could possibly be that my son, who was adopted from birth, not biological, you know this, Jock, that my son says more times than not, my dad said this, or my dad did that. Because when I hear my friends now talk about their dads posthumously, I wish was here to give me advice on the relationship. I wish my dad was here to give me advice on my career. My dad set the example for what tenacity was. And I started thinking about it. I was sitting on the couch downstairs, kind of going through this weird thing, like, who am I? And who am I without all the drive and all the ambition and all the money and all the things? Who am I without that? Because I've been that since I was 17. I've been hard charging and knowing how to succeed. But sitting on the couch, God is my witness, I was like, I want to do more things that my son says. I want to be more like my dad. And in that, as simple as it was, it gave me permission to let go of so much. I mean, Jock, I wrote my book. I've been writing. You're going to publish it. It's been almost 6 years. I think I started I wrote it October of 2020. Like, God, I stare at the thing, this, and you and I have a discussion about that, but I was able to let go.
Yeah.
I was able to, and it felt awkward and it felt vulnerable. Like, who am I without all this other stuff? But even since you and I talked, I've given myself permission. Like, so oftentimes we think one day we're going to retire.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, one day I'm going to calm down. One day I'm going to, and I thought about it, like the old story. You heard a guy about the New York stockbroker who went to Mexico to go fishing. And the guy goes, "What are you going to do when you retire?" And he goes, "I'm going to come here and I'm going to fish." And the guy goes, "Right now." And so I've told myself, like, right now, why don't I just retire right now? And what would that feel like to give myself permission to do things and to not be so goal oriented? And at this phase of my life, it's been one of the biggest blessings that I can have in thinking about mortality and everything else. It's like, no, I've got right now. And we both, all three of us have said this so importantly. And I want to end kind of on this part, is the intention. Like, we're all very intentional about, hey, pain is a part of the process. Pain is a part of growth. And I'm not going to run from it. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm not going to repress it. I'm not going to bury it in alcohol or drugs or Netflix or anything else. I'm going to be aware of it and I'm going to face it. So for both of you guys, I want to respect your time because I know it's late on the East Coast. What advice do you have for people who are listening to this right now that perhaps go, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's not their time? What do you both say to these individuals, these men that are journey? What do you say to them to plant seeds for when they do awake? Because I think it's all about receptivity for each of us, as we've experienced here tonight. But what advice do you have for those people who perhaps it's not right now, but you want to plant a seed for them?
Jock,
I would say that any man that's out there is to think of themselves as being a turtle. Because the turtle is one of the only animals in the world that it retreats when it feels pain and it feels suffering inside of its shell. It starts to grow inside under its shell, the protective covering that protects itself from everything in life that it fears and everything that goes on. But what does it do? It goes into the silence. It goes away. It hides itself. And because it can't breathe. It feels pain. It's got no more room to expand. For every man that's out there, we've all been like this. We've all had no way to breathe. We've got no room to expand. So go into yourself and be a turtle. Shed the shell in safety. Because when you shed the shell, you'll grow another one that's bigger. And then you continue your journey of growth. That's what I would say to them. Be a turtle.
Be a turtle. All right, cool. What about you, Mr.?
Be the buffalo.
Okay, we got animals going on here tonight. I love it.
Nice one.
Be the buffalo. Okay.
I learned this from a leadership coach that he described the story of the buffalo and the cow, which both live in the West in the U.S. And when a storm approaches, the cow tries to run away. And what happens? The storm chases the cow and the cow suffers longer. Well, if you're the buffalo is the only animal that does this. The buffalo will run into the storm because they have figured out that if you hit the storm head on, deal with your problems head on, then you'll suffer for less time and you'll be better for it. And I was told this story to a friend and showed up for coffee with him, and he had this little box and it was sitting there on the table. I had no idea what it was. And at the end of the meeting, he said, I got you something. And he gives me the box, open it up, and it's a buffalo belt buckle.
Oh, nice.
with the belt. And I wear that every day.
Whoa.
It reminds me that, there's always going to be storms in life. And you can either choose to run away from them or run into them and deal with whatever you're dealing with and move on.
Gentlemen, I want to respect your time. We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. Thank you both so much for being here. I appreciate you immensely for having this vulnerable conversation, for sharing the strategies that you both have in your life. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I will hear more comments in the coming days from people listening to this podcast, because we're in 30 plus countries. Can't thank you guys enough. Please let people know. I'm going to put it in the show notes, of course, where people can get a hold of you, where people can learn more about each of you. And then I'm going to close out the show, but where can people get a hold of you and learn more about you aside from what I'll put in the show notes?
Go on, Eric.
Okay. If you want to track me down, my company website is element47.co. You can email me, ej@element47.co. That is probably the easiest way. Not on Facebook. I also have a podcast that I do that's mostly business related, and these are entrepreneurs talking about the struggles of being a business owner, and it's called The Decision. And so we all have to make decisions in life. And so sometimes these ones that we make in business are really damned hard.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look up EO Nashville, it's EO Nashville podcast, you'll find that. And we've got some great members in that organization telling their stories. And my cohort, Robert, and I interview people all the time. I think if you got room for another podcast in your life, you can learn a few things from that.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And what about you, Mr. Brocas?
Oh, you can get me on my website. You can message me. It's jockbrocas.com. It's primarily about my work in grief. You can also get me on Instagram at jockbrocas or at spiritual medium. And if you want to connect in what I'm doing, I'm the chief editor of Paranormal Daily News. And you can also find me there. I have the Deadly Departed podcast. You can find me there interviewing some of the top minds in parapsychology and spiritual development in the world. And I have a few other podcasts that I do as well, but they're the main ones. But if you need anything, and if you're grieving and you just need some information, then I always get back to people, no matter where they are. If you've got any questions, you can reach out to me anytime on Instagram. I will help you. I may not get back to you straight away, but I make it a point to help everybody understand their journey, especially in grief. If you want to join my community as well, I have a free community where I have a support community where I help people in their grieving journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eric Jackson and Mr. Jock Brocas here on episode number 2 of the Men's Mental Health series here on the Raw Unscripted show. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to put you backstage. Don't go anywhere if you can hang around for a second, because I still want to talk to you guys. But thank you guys for being here. I'm just going to end out the show. Okay, there we have it. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen of the Raw and Unscripted Nation, here is your marching orders now. So you've listened to this conversation tonight. You've been inspired. But what is it that you're going to do? What is it that you're going to do? One of the first things I recommend that you do is you take a listen to what it is that Jock and Eric and myself talked about today. Intentionality. What is your intentionality about yourself? What is the intentionality about the people in your life? What is the intentionality about the actions that you're taking? Are your intentions and are your actions supporting who it is that you're becoming? Like, ask yourself this question: who am I becoming right now? Because sometimes we think that when we arrive somewhere, then we'll be happy, right? When I have the money, when I have the fame, when I have the whatever it might be, then I'll be happy. When I become confident to speak in front of other people, when I have my PhD, whatever it is, then I'll be. How about just deciding right now? Be intentional. And the first thing you can do that is when you wake up in the morning, have some intention for your life of what it is what it is that you want to do and who it is that you want to become, number one. But number two, instead of focusing on what it is that you don't have, focus on what it is that you're grateful for, right? I'm grateful for the bed I'm sleeping in. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for the health of my dog. I'm grateful for the opportunity to go hiking, whatever it might be. Focus on the intention of who it is that you're going to become and what it is that you're going to do for the day. Focus on gratitude for the ability and the opportunities to do it with the people that you have in your life. And then go out there and find more of that. and surround yourself with people that get it. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are bitching and pissing and moaning and blaming everybody else for why they're not happy or why they don't have something, you need to take inventory about the people that you surround yourself with most with, because when you look at the 5 people you're around the most, chances are you're like those individuals. So me, I surround myself with people like Jock and people like Eric and people like Lee and people like Walt and people like Scott and all these awesome opportunities, people in my life, Dr. Linda. I mean, I could go on with the women in my life also. When you surround yourself with those right people and you reach out to them when you're having challenges and you have those open and honest conversations and you go and you see people in person, that's what I loved about what Eric was saying, like going and seeing people in person. That's something that I need to do a better job of. I've got tons of relationships out there, but I tend to be a homebody and I tend not to go out there as much as I used to when I was in corporate or when I was speaking or when I was more in my ego validation days. So I know for me, it's like, hey, Chris, have you gone out and hung out with people in the last couple of months? So I know for me, for my mental health, it's like, Chris, you haven't planned to go to a concert. You haven't planned to go to a seminar or whatever. You haven't planned to go see a friend somewhere, right? And then Jock and I talk about this too, going to Nashville and meeting up with Eric. Make plans in your life. Make plans in your life to grow, to prosper, to be grateful, to challenge yourself. But also, like I said before, have acceptance and have love and appreciation for the process of life, because life does kind of do these things, these up and down things. And once you learn to know and understand that in the flow, in those low valleys, that those are the opportunities where they're teaching you the most. And that on the other side of that, you'll be able to help other people go through those experiences as well. And that's what I look at for my life. I look at that I am somewhat of maybe a trendsetter for guys in their 50s, how to stay buff and how to stay kick ass and maybe that's my new mission in life. Maybe my new mission in life is to write kids books. Who knows? But don't limit yourself. Be excited for the journey that you're on, because that is your choice. It's your choice, ladies and gentlemen, nobody else's. So get wise with the program, stop blaming, get forgiveness with yourself, and continue to show up here on the Raw Unscripted show. We'll be back here next Tuesday. I'll be on vacation, so it'll be a recorded show, but it'll be part 3 of this men's mental health series. So go back and listen to number 1 with Lee Height and Christopher Allen, and then make sure that if you came in halfway through this one, go back and check it out from the beginning, and do me a solid. Share this out with some men in your life and say, hey, man, you need to check out these dudes. They're talking the real shit, and they're making a difference in people's lives. Do that for me, and I appreciate you guys. So there it is. Another episode of the Raw Unscripted show. I will see you next time here, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I love you guys. Peace.